This is quiz 4, step 6, the last step of the quiz. In this step, we will answer the question, how close are the urban gardens to the toxic waste sites? We'll determine the distances between urban gardens of Washington and toxic waste sites, because not everyone likes radiation in their greens. The process to do this may sound daunting and confusing at first, as well as the process being a little bit confusing, but using ArcMap, it is relatively simple, easy to utilize some specialized tools and procedures to make this happen. We will break down the distance of urban gardens from toxic waste sites into groups of miles, greater than 5.5, between 2.5 and 5.5, between 0.7 and 2.5, and less than 0.75. The first step I try to remember to do is to save my map. I'm going to save it as step 6, and it ends up in my maps K4. Create a new data frame titled Urban Garden Waste. Insert data frame, rename it, adding all 3 urban garden layers, toxic waste BGD, and the block group demographics, shapefiles, and features. So back to our data, we're going to pull in the urban gardens, X, Y, and Z. And notice I didn't clear the coordinate system after each one because I knew I was adding all 3. I'm going to clear it now. And they're still in the same general area, so I think I'm doing well. Toxic waste, the one that we've already clipped earlier, BGD. Notice the toxic waste is in the same general area, although we may have one way out beyond. We will see. And then block group demographics, and I was incorrect. It is within our area of study. I'm going to zoom to the full extent, and all of my data is in the same spot. Hopefully, I'm going to clear the projection of the coordinates of the data frame, and I still have all my data. I can turn them on and off. And they're all in the same space. Our first area of concern in relation to our analysis that we have multiple data layers of urban gardens. This analysis could be completed 3 separate times and then merged together, but for the sake of efficiency, we should first combine our urban gardens into one feature class so that we only need to run the process once. We will utilize a new tool for combining multiple input datasets into a single new output dataset. This tool can combine point, line, or polygon feature classes or tables. It is found in the geoprocessing menu and is called the Merge tool. The complete definition from Esri is it combines multiple input datasets of the same type into a single new output dataset. This tool can combine point, line, or polygon feature classes or tables. In the geoprocessing tool, I scroll down to Merge and add all 3 urban gardens. Urban Garden Z, Urban Garden Y, Urban Garden X. At this point, I can rename my output dataset. I'm going to name it Urban Garden Merged. I'll take out the Z. It took the first name. Urban Garden Merge into my data K4. This looks good. I don't need to worry about any field map at this point. I just need to make sure I have the 3 urban gardens and it's going to the proper place. It completes. I click close. There's my urban gardens merge. I can turn off the urban gardens and then the separate urban gardens, and turn on and off the layer to make sure that we're looking at what we hope is the right data. It seems to line up, and it seems to be a combination of all the urban gardens. I can either remove these or leave them and minimize them. That's your choice. If you'd like to clean it up, you're welcome to remove. In this step, it's going to seem odd, but I'm going to open up the attribute table of the urban gardens merge. I'll stretch this out a bit so you can see what we're looking at. And of course, I named this urban garden merge just for this analysis. Don't let any of the other data bother you. I'm going to add a field, and as noted earlier, I'm going to add a field. Usually it's a double, it's a text, or a date. In this case, it is a text field, and we're going to leave it at 50. So we'll call this field garden dis, and that's the distance of the garden from the toxic sites. So that individual garden, each row, how far that is from any toxic site. And because I want a text field, I'm going to scroll down to text, and I can leave this at 50. Technically, I could shorten it, and on second thought, I think I will shorten it. There's no need for it to be so long. Let's shorten it to 25 characters. I now have a garden dis field that is completely empty, and there's 1008 rows or features of urban gardens merged throughout this area on my map. In this step, I'm going to arbitrarily assign, using the field calculator, click yes to that warning, I'm going to assign a value of greater than 5.5 miles. Greater than 5.5 miles. And you may realize that we have no idea if any of these are greater than 5.5 miles. And in fact, many of them are much less than 5.5 miles away. But starting out with this greater than 5.5 miles, it's text, so I'm putting quotes. Also, I should mention that I can never remember if it's single quotes or double quotes. It depends on if you're using feature classes or shapefiles. I'll try double quotes at this point. Again, I'm assigning greater than 5.5 miles for every single one of these urban gardens. That's the first step. Again, this is not accurate. It is just our starting point. You will see how we narrow it down in a moment. For now, I can close my attribute table because it's in the way, and I'm going to use a new tool, select by location. I'm going to go to selection, select by location, and I want to select all urban gardens, and this is urban gardens merge. So I click urban garden merge. Don't be confused about Z, Y, and X. That are within 5.5 miles of a toxic waste site. ARC has pulled in toxic waste BGD. That's our clip of toxic waste. That's perfect. We're going to apply a search distance here, as well as a spatial selection method for the target layer feature. In this case, we're going to say are within a distance of the source feature layer. And notice the source feature layer is the toxic waste block groups demographics. Instead of meters, I'm going to change that to miles. And as noted in the directions, I want to start off with 5.5 miles. So this will select all urban gardens that are anywhere from 0.000001 to 5.5 miles from a toxic waste site, leaving those that are not within 5.5 miles not selected. You can use this about select by location to get more information, but for now, let's just click apply. And notice almost all, if I turn off the toxic waste sites, almost all of my urban gardens have been selected, which is fine. I want to leave them selected at this point. I can leave the select by location window open. I'm going to go to my attribute table and notice how there are 962 selected. To see them more clearly, I could just look at show selected records. I'm going to go back. I want to show you that the non-selected ones are not going to change. The ones we selected are within 5.5 miles. I want to now change the garden distance from a toxic site using my field calculator to say garden distance now with, put in my double quotes, within 2.5 to 5.5 miles, because the next selection I'm going to perform is 2.5. Right now, these are all within 0 to 5.5 miles. And watch what happens when I click OK. These cells that are not highlighted are not going to change. Only the selected features are going to change. That's a characteristic of Arc. I click OK, and notice within 2.5 to 5.5, all of those that I selected changed, not the items that were not selected. At this point, I want to clear my selected features. And I click on the clear selected features. I can close the attribute table, and I can do my select by location again. This time, I'm going to select 2.5 miles. Urban Gardens merge, toxic waste within a distance of the source feature layer, and change this to 2.5 miles. There will be less now selected because we're getting closer and closer to toxic waste sites. I click apply and open up the attribute table. There are 702. I scroll over, and only those that said 2.5 to 5.5 are selected, because obviously those that are greater than would not be within 2.5. I'm going to complete my field calculator again. And this time it's going to state in quotes within 3/4 of a mile. Because this is text, I can use characters like the slash. Notice only those that are selected are going to change. Now that I've completed that selection, I'm going to clear the selection. I've completed the field calculator, clear the selection, and run my select by location again. I'm going to leave this table open because it seems to be working that way. I'll change, instead of 2.5 miles to 0.75 miles. Click apply, and now there are 189 selected. And it's easy to see that I actually made a mistake. The last time I entered my values, I went a step ahead, so which means it's okay. I just have to go back and fix it. So let me go back. Mistakes happen, and it's like your shoe. If your shoe's untied, you just stop and retie it. So let's clear my selection. I'll go back to my selection method, change it to 2.5, apply. I'm back to the 702. Now when I do my field calculator, it should say not within 3/4 of a mile, but between 3/4 and 2.5 miles. And let's just use decimals, 0.75, between 0.75 and 2.5 miles is the garden distance. I'll click OK. Now it's changed. Warnings were generated. So I look at the results window. It gave me an error. To find my error, I'm going to look at geoprocessing results, and it popped up back here. I'm going to move a couple things out of the way. And in the current session, calculate field, I've got an arrow, and it states that truncated values are flagged with a trailing asterisk, which means it's likely too long. It did not fit in the special field. What I need to do, and again, mistakes happen, is redo that field calculator. Say yes, and we'll change it to an abbreviation. Just 0.75 and 2.5 miles. I guess I should have left it at larger than 50. So again, I selected within 2.5 miles. I know that my next selection is going to be 0.75. So I'm assigning the value of 0.75 and 2.5 miles. Now I did not get an error. I can close the results and bring this back. Clear my selection and run the selection again, this time with 0.75 miles. I apply, there's 189. I run my field calculator again and say, this time, in quotes, within 3/4 of a mile. And I'm going to keep it short in case I go beyond, I don't want to go beyond the 25 characters. Click OK. And now I've got all of those 189 within 3/4 of a mile. I'm done with my selections at this point. Select by location, so I can close. For now, in the attribute table, I'm going to clear the selection. Aside from a couple errors, which is actually good that they happen, so you could see that we just go back and remedy the errors, this went rather well. We were able to narrow down our selections one at a time by first assigning a greater than designation to each urban garden and selectively and methodically narrowing down our selections to assign proper values. Let's answer the last few questions. How many urban gardens are within 0.75 miles of a toxic waste site? Well, if I have already cleared this value, I no longer have that number in there. If I can't recall what that was, it's an easy fix to figure it out. And now I'm going to use a formula. Select by attributes, and I want to select in garden dis, select from urban gardens merge where garden dis equals, and instead of trying to type exactly within 3/4 of a mile, I can use get unique values. All of the unique values are there. There are only 4 different values, and I double click on within 3/4 of a mile. I'll click apply, and it gives me a value of 189. The next question, how many urban gardens are within 0.75 and 2.5 miles? I should, by the way, clear my selection, go back to select by attributes, change the latter part of the formula, and choose within 0.75 and 2.5 miles. Apply. 513. I clear my selection. I run the select by attributes again, and instead choose between 2.5 and 5 miles. Invalid statement. I must have messed up my formula. I'll delete everything after the equals and try it again. Double click, apply, 260. And notice the values are different now than when we first selected them, because the way we selected them, we were narrowing down the choices. So this is why we have to go through and select these in this manner after the fact. Clear my selection. And the last question, how many urban gardens are greater than 5.5 miles? Highlight the end of my formula, delete it, greater than 5.5 miles, apply, and there are 46. Now I have my answers, and I'm ready to enter them into the questions. The last thing I should do is clear my selection, close my attribute table, and save my map. Into quiz 4. This is step 6. I click save. It asks me if it wants to run a replace. I'll say yes. You could symbolize at this point, and if this were a lab, you'd be creating your map, but I'm not going to bother to do that. You would also save your map when you're complete after your symbology and map formatting. AAA user ID quiz 4 final.mxd, and then close ArcMap before you zip, because if you don't close ArcMap before you zip, you'll get a schema error and it may not zip up properly. And that completes step 6 of quiz 4 video demo.